Welcome back to the Path Podcast. We are now returning to the conversation between Jeff and Dave McLaughlin from last week. If you haven't heard the first half of this conversation, go back and listen to the previous episode and join us here.
There's one or two people, several people know, hey, this is where it's at. Everybody keeps it in the same place because you want it to get back to your loved ones.
Right.
Just in case something happens, in case it happens to you. And there's a lot of guys that it did. And it takes its toll on you when you go to pull that letter out of a buddy's pocket and you've got to send it back to his next of kin.
You talked about that first time you had to pull the trigger on an enemy,
mm-hmm.
and then how you then become numb to it. As part of that, you almost have to like dehumanize the enemy to a bit.
Yeah.
So you have that part going through, but then you also have your fellow Marines, and you're not dehumanizing them.
Exactly.
So you have both ends of the spectrum. It feels like that you're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
And you're trying to protect yourself and your fellow Marines.
Correct. And I'll say this. As a warrior, you have a healthy respect for your enemy. If you don't, that's when your enemy gets you. You have a healthy fear of your enemy. But at the same time, you can't hesitate.
Right.
And that's where we go back to that whole very beginning in May, June, July, and August of 1995 of the basics of becoming a Marine and being trained in discipline in the instant willingness and obedience to orders. Whether you agree with it or not, it's the instant willingness, obedience to orders. And there was multiple times. Did I think I was probably running into my death? Absolutely. But the good Lord had other plans.
How is it for you? Because you're a leader. You're not the general that's ordering thousands, hundreds into it, but you have your team.
Correct.
And you're having to give those orders as well, or the orders are coming down from above, and then you're having to tell people to run into this also.
Mm-hmm.
That's different when you're at your sergeant level.
That's intestinal fortitude.
When you're at the lance corporal level and you're just following the order. Now you're part of that chain that's giving that order.
That's giving that order. Correct. And that's intestinal fortitude. It's accepting what that order is, and you know what? So be it. This is what my country has asked of me. And this is what we're going to do. And at that level, I believe in the way I lead is I'm not going to ask you to do something that either A, I haven't done, or I'm not going to do with you. Most of those scenarios, guess what? I'm coming with you guys. Because one, as a small team, I'm also the grenadier.
Right.
So I've got.
You have to go.
I'm shooting the 40 Mike grenades. So I'm going, and I'm carrying most of the grenades on my LBV, as far as M67 fragmentation grenades. so I'm going either way. Actually, we're all carrying M67s, but as far as the 40 Mikes, I'm the grenadier leading that. So I'm in there. At that point in time, we're all there to accomplish the mission, and I think we're all bought in. And I'll just be quite frank, based on what we have seen at that point, we are we're mad. We're mad. We're upset. We've taken some casualties, and somebody's going to pay the price for that. Somebody's paying. Somebody's paying the piper. You may not have been the one that fired it, but by golly, you're firing shots.
You're on the same team.
You're on the same team. That's it. And this guy was on our team, so guess what? It's an eye for an eye, and this is our objective. And I'll say, to quote Admiral Chester Nimitz, the Commandant of the Fifth Fleet, back during World War II, his quote from Iwo Jima was about the Marines there was, uncommon valor was a common virtue. And you see that in the Marines of yesterday, of today, and you will continue to see that in the Marines of tomorrow. And there's a reason we say, the few and the proud. It is the smallest force, but with a completely different mission. The warfighter is brought out of the Marine when you're in those austere conditions and in those combat conditions. Nobody wants to be the one to let your team down, to let your fellow Marine down, to let your fellow man down. Everybody's running into the fight.
So you're in this battle, this weeks-long battle of Fallujah. While you're going through that, are you feeling the mental exhaustion of it, or is it you're just going through every day and making it through each day as it comes? Are you feeling? Is it something you're feeling that toll building up on you as you're going through it, or is it something that takes effect afterwards? Because I'm sure
the physical exhaustion is there. The mental exhaustion comes and goes. The mental exhaustion comes and goes. Now the mental toll comes later.
Right.
There's a mental impact every day, right? But you have to get up, brush it off, and move on, all right? Don't let what happened to Fox be in vain, Don't let what happened to Eddie or Sonny be in vain. Avenge what happened to them.
Yeah, I talked about like your leadership during this. How was the leadership that you displayed towards your people? How was the leadership that you were experienced from others keeping you where you needed to be? Or if it didn't, what was
I can honestly say, I experienced the worst of Marine Corps leadership during peacetime. I experienced the best of Marine Corps leadership at war.
You think that's common?
Absolutely.
Marines are fighters. So
Absolutely.
where they
Absolutely.
shine?
Absolutely. Captain Stoddard, Captain Zimbeck, young Marine infantry officers. And I'll tell you, there's a general now at TCOM, Marine General Tony Henderson. During peacetime, he was the best. One of the best leaders I ever encountered. Would love to have gone to combat with him. The other company commanders that I had, quite honestly, their leadership style never would have transitioned into combat. Those guys would have been fragged, what we call fragged. There was talk about it during peacetime about fragging those guys, if that tells you anything. Yeah. There was never about the leadership that we had during while we were downrange in combat. We had, your senior enlisted sometimes get a little carried away. Yeah. I'll still never forget, of course, the Marine Corps in garrison is big on appearance. We had 1 liter bottles of water. Is what that was where we got our water. The local water, you didn't trust that. And keep in mind, ambient air temperature there in the summertime in Fallujah, 110, 120 degrees.
And then put your gear on top of that.
Right.
You're needing water.
Yeah. And ice is not a common commodity to keep it cold.
Right. You're just glad it's wet at that point.
Yeah. And I don't like warm water. It's hard for me to drink it. I would force myself to.
You probably really don't like warm water now.
But yeah. So I learned a trick, and it came from a guy that I saw with a desert bag. And it was like a canvas canteen, and you wet the outside of that canteen, and the wind would cool it. I was like, okay, there's something to this. So I took one of my daggone green socks, and I dropped that 1 liter water bottle down in it and poured water over that sock and got it wet and tied it onto the side of our Humvee. Of course, we're going down the road and we look like the Beverly Hillbillies, right? With those socks hanging off there, but it cooled our water.
Yeah.
And we get out to this pause on the north side of Fallujah. We'd just come down out of Saclawea, and we come to the battalion pause, and I'll never forget the battalion sergeant major. He's like, Sergeant Mack, what is that on the side of your Humvee? I said, that's cold water, Sergeant Major. He said, well, I expect you to look more professional than that. I don't want to see that again. And I'm like, oh, man, here we go, This daggone guy, old geezer. So I pull it off there. I take me a cold drink of water. And the colonel standing there, and he said, explain that to me, Sergeant Mack. I said, see, this is cold water right here, sir. And I gave him a drink. He said, that is pretty cool. The next day, I see the colonel and sergeant major Hummers going down through there with socks hanging off with a bottle of water in it.
Like, I'm leaving my sock water on.
That's right. That's right.
You mentioned you were hit by an IED.
Mm-hmm.
So you get hit by an IED, you're injured, you have shrapnel.
So
what follows that?
So we hit an IED, and fortunately,
Are you in a Hummer?
Yeah.
Are they armored at this point?
We got steel plates. Steel plates.
So they're not manufactured as armored.
No.
But you modified them to a way.
We'd modified them.
Yeah.
And so that's what saved me from physical injuries, so to speak, visible injuries, because the way we had cut that out and mounted those doors protected the head and the body. but it was still open a little bit. So shrapnel come in and hit the windshield, but nothing hit me. And to this day, it's the last piece I need. I'm still fighting VA over my migraines. You tell me what 27-year-old, 26, 27-year-old has never had problems with headaches a day in his life, and then comes back from all that and winds up with having serious migraines all the time, to the extent of 3 to 4 a week. And I mean, I'm on medication from the VA for control of those to this day, but yet they don't consider it service connected. Go figure.
You're right.
So that we've had, survived several mortar and rocket impacts. Had a rocket come right through our hooch, our living quarters, while I was sleeping, come probably 2 feet from my head, as it come through and impacted on the wall across from me. Buddy of mine, Mario, one of those Southern California guys, that I still stay in contact with to this day. He and I were walking across the fob, and incoming mortars hit right in front of us. We get some concussion from it. Fortunately, we didn't get any shrapnel, but we did take some concussion from it. I am fortunate enough that I never took any. I never got a good aim. I never gave the enemy a good aim medal, or a Purple Heart. And that's kind of one of my hang-ups with the VA. And they're like, well, you don't have a Purple Heart. I was like, well, yeah, I was, not all injuries are visible,
right.
But I'm still fighting some of that battle. But we go through a lot, and then we move into Phantom Fury, and we're going block to block, doing more fighting, watching more guys, and then I guess I got another good story, again, civil affairs, because it's not all fighting all the time. If you think about what's going on in our world today with Iran, right? Mm-hmm. You get these little periods of ceasefire. We had some ceasefire moments here and there for a week or two, and then it'd flare back up. Then it'd die down, flare back up and die back down during one of those periods. And keep in mind, everything is tribal over there, and the sheikhs call the shots. So you may have one sheikh for a village, or one sheikh for a couple different villages outside of the main city. And then in the city, you may have a sheikh for this block, or a sheikh for these blocks. And then that sheikh will report to an imam. It's a hierarchy type deal. Keep in mind, the system that they're used to is crooked. So everybody's on the take, right?
It almost sounds like you could relate it to some of the bigger cities and how the gang influences are, where you have different gangs running different areas.
Mm-hmm. That's it. That's exactly it.
Kind of the same thing.
And for those people that know me, I mean, there's stuff on my Facebook you can see, and it's out there. But you'll see a photo of me driving a good old boy from Tennessee driving a tractor down the streets of Fallujah. We played Robin Hood. We had one sheikh that was playing dirty, and we're like, okay, you know what? We gave you this money to do this project with, and this is what you did with it. You went and took it from this village and took it over to this other one. That wasn't the intent. So we went and rolled that sheikh up and took the tractors and played Robin Hood and took it over here to this other village. And we're like, well, how are we going to get it there? Who knows how to drive a tractor? Well, Mac, you're from Tennessee. Well,
you're from Tennessee. You obviously should know.
Yeah, you obviously know how to drive a tractor. I was like, well, yeah, I did.
You also know how to make whiskey too, right? You're from Tennessee.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there was good times mixed in there, memorable times. I remember 4th of July that year. Went up to Sacagawea. One of my projects that I did up that way. Sacagawea is a little town a little village north of Fallujah. And I'm like, okay, you know what? We're going to show some people. Fallujah don't want it. I'm going to go spend some money in some of these other villages. And by doing so, what you do is you start making them jealous in other areas. Man, I want that. So what you use it is with in reverse psychology. Okay, well, if you'd done this, then guess what? I would have done that. Or if you'll do this for me, I'll give you this. Because we were walking out there throwing money around everywhere, and I set up a medical clinic in Sacagawea. And I got to know this guy real good. I used to stop by his little roadside stand and get a cold drink or something from him, I want to say it was like an Arabic Pepsi or something. And I'd get something cold from him every time we go through there, just trying to offer some goodwill in the area and get some intel. Because if you barter and trade with them, they'll give you information. And I still remember come 4th of July, I was like, hey, and he would sell lambs. And I still remember going on patrol. I think it was on July 1st. And I told him, I was like, hey, we're going to be back through here in a couple of days. I said, how long does it take for you? Because I wasn't going to give him the exact day, right? Because who knows who he's going to go back and tell? Because I'm not going to tell him. I don't want him setting up something for me. But how long does it take to have that lamb butchered up and ready for me? And it take no time. It take no time, mister. All right. So if I tell you when I come through, will you have it ready for me when I come back out? Oh, yes, mister. Like, all right. I said, well, the next time I come through, I said, I'm going to want a lamb. Because I'm thinking July 4th, right? And so we come back through. That was on July 1st, I believe it was. I think we come back through on the 3rd. And I told him, hey, I want that lamb when I come back out of town. And sure enough, he had it butchered up for us. We took it back, and I got some coal. We had an interpreter, a Cat 3 interpreter. Had some family in Baghdad, and had them bring us some charred coals down, and we had a barbecue. I cooked some lamb up for July 4th in the middle of a war zone.
Wow. How was the lamb?
It was pretty good. It was pretty good for what it was in the middle of a war zone. Fresh.
Yeah. Yeah. You're sitting here, you go through this battle, you're a little older, and we talked earlier, you weren't really where you need to be in your Christian walk.
No.
And now you're going through this, and are you at this point?
At this point, I have drawn closer, right? We're in church. We're back at First Baptist in Dixon, and actively involved there. My Christian life is going well, okay. Right?
While you're in Fallujah, is it?
Well, at that point, yes. Okay. And I'm reading my Bible where I can. My prayer life is really strong at that point. What is it that I saw that this T-shirt that I see sometimes? What is it? I love Jesus, but I cuss a little. You
probably cuss a little being a Marine over in Florida.
Right. But
or maybe a lot.
Yeah. I think I think yes, and while I'm there, I'm doing great. Right. I come home and I'm okay at first, right?
How long a break? So you get ready, you're in the battle, y'all have the Battle of Fallujah, but and then eventually you're coming home.
Yeah.
How long, like once you realize you're coming home, it's not like you jump on a plane in Fallujah and you fly to Nashville and you're just going home that evening.
No.
How long of transition point is it to like you're going out of country before you're back in country until you're back in Nashville, Dixon?
Yeah. So at the end of 2004, we caught a helicopter out of Camp Fallujah, and I'll never forget that scene. And for those that are old enough, if you remember the last episode of MASH, and Hawkeye taking that helicopter out and looking down, just seeing looking out over the city. One, looking out over the compound, the fob. And then as we're getting higher in the air and leaving, seeing the city out the back of the helicopter. I can remember that. Flying up to Cottom. We flew to Cottom. Spent the night at Tecottum. The next night we flew out of Tecottum back down to Camp Victory in Kuwait. 2 days at Kuwait, and we were on a commercial flight back to the United States. We flew from Kuwait to Tokyo. Had a refuel stop in Tokyo, and then from Tokyo to San Diego. And we got back to San Diego, and I'm trying to remember what time it was. I don't remember what time of day it was when we got back to San Diego, but it was, I do know that it was late afternoon. And I do remember getting off the plane and kissing the ground. I was never so thankful to be on U.S. soil as I was that day. And my wife and kids and my mom and dad, they weren't in California yet. They weren't going to be there for another day. But, and they made their plans based on my flight window. And all movements, military, it's based on flight windows. So they could have been there a day ahead of me, or I could have, it could have been the same day. It's just the way the window worked out. But I got there a day ahead, and fortunately, her brother was actually stationed at Camp Pendleton. He was there. He had just he hadn't been there but a couple months. So he met me. So it was good to see a family face. And then one of my best friends from high school, he and I worked at the sheriff's office together. We went in the Marine Corps together. He went in like 4 weeks after I did. He was an MP. We got out. We both worked at the sheriff's office together. And then he went back in. And so the next day, before my family got there, I remember seeing these two MPs at Camp Pendleton. So to answer your question, it was just a few days.
So you're flying out, and I'm thinking back to like different times of military, like World War II. You go in, you're there for duration, and then you had, I can't think what Korea was. Vietnam, you did a year tour, and now you have different branches do different amounts of tours. What were you ready to leave when you left, or did you feel like you need? Was there any of thinking, I want to stay till the job's done, or it's like, hey, I got the chance to get out of here. I'm getting out of here right now.
A little bit of both. A little bit of both. I was ready to get back. I was ready to get back to my family. For one, I'd already been on a long and extended tour. So I was ready to get back.
Okay.
The other aspect of it was I've got some unfinished business. But ultimately I wanted to get back home.
Yeah,
So when we landed in, we got to San Diego, and then we had a few days off, obviously, when we got back. And then, the next day I met my family there, and we got to spend, somehow or another, it wound up into a weekend, and we got to spend a long weekend together. And then they flew back home to Tennessee, and I spent about another week and a half, 2 weeks in California, going through decompression, different classes on readjusting, just getting checked out, turning gear in, medical evaluations, psychological evaluations, how to handle transitioning back from a combat zone, how to transition back from that life to living a life back in the States.
When you're going through that, was it helpful, or was it like, can I just get over this and go home?
It was, I just want to get over this and go home. It wasn't helpful at all.
I think about the post-traumatic stress and, World War II, we called it shell shock, and it's had different things. And I was recently reading a book, and the book is talking about when the railroad was made. And there was just a lot of death that went along with that project. And instead of being called shell shock post-traumatic, they came up with it, and that related it to the railroad. And I forgot what it's called now, and that's not important. But it's like, this isn't a new thing.
No.
And it's been there, and we keep calling it different things. Now it's post-traumatic stress. I've listened to other podcasts with military guys and stuff, and they talk about, the difference in military and police side of it. And you have both.
Mm-hmm.
So police side of it, you deal with things, and you're never away from it. Like,
correct.
When you're working for Dixon County Sheriff's Office, you go to Walmart in Dixon, you might run into somebody you had to fight. When you come back from the military, the military guys, you get more of a separation. But then you have other issues you're facing too that other people around you can't relate to, like driving down the road and seeing a bag on the side of the road.
Mm-hmm.
So making that transition, coming back to, Middle Tennessee, you have a wife, you have 2 young children.
That was rough.
Did you come back and go back to the sheriff's office at that point?
No,
Okay.
no. I came back and I took some time and decided there was no money in law enforcement.
That's true.
You can speak from experience, huh?
Yes.
So we alluded to my time at the airport, and with public safety at the airport, everybody does law enforcement. Everybody does crash fire rescue, and everybody does basic first responder EMS, right? But everybody also specializes in something. Whether you're an advanced EMT or a dog handler, whether that's explosives dog, drug dog, hostage and crisis negotiator, hazmat. I did hazmat, and I knew some guys in the private sector of that. It's called the environmental world. So I got into environmental contracting when I got back in 2005. And I've been in environmental contracting ever since, or involved in environmental. I took a 2.5-year stint doing environmental health and safety with a new plant being built at one point in time. But other than that, I've been involved in for the most part, in environmental contracting or somewhat in that business.
Yeah, and we talked before we started recording. You come back, and you're not married to your wife that you had then.
No, I'm not now.
And y'all had 2 kids together. You come back. Mm-hmm. What's going on in y'all's life at that point?
So like I said, I come back and, life is good. Somewhat. We're in church. I'm back in Tennessee, driving down the road in Dixon County, and I'm sitting at a red light. I've been back in country 2 months, and I'm sitting there, and a truck is going by and it backfires. And the next thing, just instinct to me, is I lean over, I grab I can still remember grabbing my son, and he was only, I think, 6 at the time. And I grabbed him around his neck and forced him down, and I leaned over and hit the accelerator, run through the red light. It took me longer to say it than it did to go through that and realize what was going on. But I'm like, wow. It just took me right back to being vulnerable. And it was those type incidents, like you said, seeing something on the side of the road that didn't look natural, or seeing somebody walk over an overpass. If I was going down, a highway where I would cut through the median. I would turn off. I would not go under that underpass. For a while, if I came up on, guardrails, I would drive down the middle of the road, split the lanes. I've got a 50-50 chance of surviving. That was my mindset. There weren't any IEDs there.
Right.
But that was my mindset. And that became a big sticking point, and I'll still never, my wife would say, you're back home. Nothing's going to happen to you. That was easy for her to say. That's easy for a lot of people to say.
Is part of you also thinking, I know.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't.
Exactly. And, it takes its toll on you, dealing with that. The other aspect of things is that first year I was good. First couple years I was okay. And then anniversaries start happening, right? You start thinking, man, this happened on this day. Fox was killed, and
are you having what people refer to as like a survivor's guilt?
Absolutely. And I'm going to tell you, everybody, a lot of people see them, these memorial bracelets that you see a lot of guys wearing. 2007 is when I really had some problems. And I'll tell you, and it got to the point where, Michelle, my wife at the time, my first wife, she was, people don't want to be around you. Well, that's their problem. I'm the way I am. but I'm alive, and I'm going to stay alive, because I'm watching who I surround myself with. And in hindsight, I look back, and that was the wrong mentality of me. But in 2007, Doug Zimbeck was killed. He had gone back to Fallujah.
He's the one you referenced earlier that took the round to the head and it entered his scalp, wrapped around.
Yep. He was the Lion of Fallujah. He had gone back, and he was training the Iraqi army, and he was leading an Iraqi unit into combat, and those guys even spoke highly of him afterwards. But he was killed, and I got that news, and that began my spiral. One of the best leaders that I had ever served under, the Lion of Fallujah. He got that nickname from the media. He was doing a media interview after a long day of fighting in Fallujah, and he made the comment of his men fought like lions today. And he was dubbed the Lion of Fallujah at that point in time. And I'll never forget one of his adages, and I actually have it engraved on my memorial bracelet that I wear for him, but was be a man of principle. And that's me. I'm about the principle of things. But that was when I started taking my downhill spiral. And why did they die? And I didn't. Why did I make it home? And I became a very unhappy person. I had to control everything in my life at that time. And when I say everything, I mean everything and everybody. It cost me my first marriage. My wife and I divorced in 2008, that next year. And I attribute a lot of that to the mental issues that I was dealing with at the time. Although at the time I didn't see those. Part of it was I don't think I wanted to.
You think it's possible to, like when you're in that depth of it?
No, it's not. It's not. But I eventually, and then I remarried, and I carried the burden of the same issues into that second marriage. And then it was the same thing, but it just compounded dealing with that guilt of why did I make it? And I quit going to church altogether. I was like, no. How can God allow this? I questioned my faith. I questioned a lot. And I questioned my salvation. And then at that point, then I started questioning my faith. And then I was like, okay, you know what? Maybe I'll try. I went to another non-denominational church that my then wife wanted me to go to there in Dixon. And I was like, no, I'm not about this. If I wanted to go to a rock concert, I'd go to a rock concert. This is not me. And some of the things in that church, I was like, hold on a minute. But I will attribute some things that it made me start to come back around, right? Because I'm like, there's no way. I understand saying that, yeah, everybody's welcome here. There's a difference in welcoming people and approving of their lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I know that goes against, and at that point I'm like, okay, maybe I don't question my faith. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I shouldn't question my faith at this time. Right. And I started to come back around and come to find out, well, she's got a boyfriend there at that church. No wonder she wants to go. And
when you're going through all this and you're finding yourself in these dark places, were you ever turn to like alcohol, drugs, or anything?
Absolutely. Like I will say I never turned to drugs.
Okay.
Or illicit drugs, should I say. My drug of choice was alcohol.
That seems to be a common thing.
Yeah. Now,
because it's easily accessible, for one. Mm-hmm. And it's also not looked at like other
Exactly.
items, it's legal.
It's legal, right? It's legal. What's wrong with that?
Right.
But alcohol was my drug of choice. So I turned to the bottle. I began.
How'd that work out?
Yeah.
Not well.
Not very well.
Yeah.
And little did I realize that, at the time, I'd heard it and everything else. That's just another depressant, right?
Yeah.
But
it's funny you say it's a depressant, but you think about it. Think about all the commercials you see. It's not depressant. Let's just talk about beer. That is not a depressant on the commercials.
No, they make it look so.
A lot of people that are drinking and they're having a great time.
Right.
Maybe the afterwards are not, but
that don't look too depressing to me.
Right. But then when you get in that dark place
mm-hmm.
and you start drinking, it makes those emotions
come to the surface.
That much stronger. It makes that anger come to the surface, that
mm-hmm.
depression, And I think that's where, when you're going through like what you're talking about, it really heightens that probably. Yeah. And this is not political at all. I'm just an idiot cop sitting here saying this stuff, but I have been a cop for almost 30 years and I've seen a lot of stuff.
Right.
But you see it do a lot of damage.
Mm-hmm. So I went to the VA and I'm like, all right, my buddy Mario that I referenced earlier, that I was in Iraq with, he's like, Mac, you got to go to the VA, get some help.
Is he talking to you about getting mental help or help with migraines or?
No, mental help.
Okay.
And so I go to the VA, I get on some medication, and like a lot of people, the medication helps, right? But then you start taking it and you're like, okay, well, I'm good.
So you don't take it.
And then you don't take it, right? And you don't realize it, but everybody else does. But the medication was interfering with my alcohol. Not the alcohol interfering with my medication.
Right.
The medication was interfering with my alcohol, in my opinion.
So you're going to ditch medication.
So I ditched the medication. And, I thought, you know what? Jack takes better care of me. Mm-hmm. And, it just began to spiral, and I'll still never forget, my second wife and I, I'd gone around and taken videos and photos and everything and was ready to file for divorce. And I got so worked up, and I'll never forget, it was on September 11th. September 11th of that year. And I was watching, I had the TV on, and there was the news, and it was showing, replaying highlights of September 11th. And at that point, I was done. It just welled so much up in me. I had gotten my alcohol, and it didn't numb me enough. I grabbed my gun, and I went outside, and I stood there for a little bit, and I was like, today's the day. And for why, I don't know. I don't know what prompted her, but my wife came around the corner, and I had the gun to my head. And when she yelled, I pulled the trigger and turned and shot right above my head. And immediately just started crying and fell and dropped the gun. She started yelling at me about being crazy and everything else. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. No,
hard to argue that at that point.
Yeah, no. Actually, I think that now at the time, but no, I was laying there crying, and I remember asking her to take me to the VA, and she said, "No, you're crazy." And I said, "Just take me to the VA so I can be admitted." She wouldn't do it. She wanted to run off with her sister and do something. I'm like, whatever. So finally, I got in my truck, and I started driving, and I called my son. I remember being a mess and in tears. And I called my son and told him, I said, Dylan,
How old's Dylan at this point?
Dylan is 21 or 22.
So he's a young adult.
Yeah. And I'm like, I need you to take me to VA, man. And of course, I'm sobbing and crying. He's like, Dad, what's wrong? I was like, I just need you to take me to VA. He goes like, where are you at? I was like, I'm driving down Highway 46, and he's like, all right, meet me at my work. So I met him there, and he carried me to VA that evening, and I was got committed to the psychiatric unit at VA. They got me back on my medication, and then got my meds straightened out. And that's still, ongoing. But started taking part in counseling and therapy. And I come out, and I remember getting discharged from the VA and going home, and next thing I know, I find out there's a warrant for my arrest. And I'm like, what? Well, there was a warrant for me for domestic. I guess between her and her sister and brother-in-law, they had copped up. They said, well, that's domestic because you scared her. I'm like, okay. So they
Me
had,
sitting here knowing how our domestic laws are written,
yeah.
and you knowing,
Oh yeah. So
I see how.
yeah. So
Not that it's appropriate.
yeah. So they played the system, did that reckless endangerment and domestic. So I got to go sit over in the jail and
Right after getting out of the VA.
yeah, as soon as I come out of the VA. Yeah.
So that's great for your mental state.
Oh yeah.
As soon as you get out, man.
Yeah. So I do that, bond out, after my 24-hour stay over there, and bond out, and I'm like, golly, and about a week or so later, there's another warrant for me. I'm like, what in the world? Violation of bond conditions. Well, she had called me. And because she called me, the simple fact that I answered the phone violated my bond conditions. I'm like, oh my gosh. So here we go again. So I get to spend some time, and then at this point, I'm just drowning myself in alcohol, right? I'm like,
How long were you at the VA before you were released?
4 days.
Probably not long enough.
Not long enough.
But you didn't have alcohol while you were there. I
No.
hope you didn't.
No.
And then you get out, you get arrested basically immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And then a day or two later, you're arrested again.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like,
Yeah.
screw this.
Oh yeah. And and then she had her boyfriend, and then I guess I scared him, and so he went and got a warrant and wanted me for simple assault because I told him I was going to hurt him, and go back. Here we go. Oh my gosh, here we go. And it's one thing after another. And at this point, I had just moved to Hendersonville. I'm like, I'm getting out of Dixon County. I got all my uncles live here in this area. So I'm like, going to Hendersonville. So I moved to Hendersonville. And here we go again. Fortunately, we wind up going into court, and I get all this taken care of and get it all behind me. And when I get settled in my apartment here in Hendersonville, I'm like, and I can tell you, I remember sitting in the jail in Dixon County. Because that third time I went, I was there for a couple weeks. They revoked bond on me and everything. The DA was gonna, but I sat there for a few weeks until we went to court, and then we had to wait around because I had worked on the judge's campaign, and it was, do we need to bring in a special judge? Or is everybody comfortable with this judge hearing the case? And fortunately, everybody was was good with Judge Monsu, knowing that he would be fair. And he was, but I was like, listen, I'm out of Dixon, came to Hendersonville, but I remember laying in my rack in the jail, and I got down and hit my knees. And I bartered with God. And so I started praying, and it was, again, a barter. God, if you will, then I will. And, I got up, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and it was you don't barter with me.
Yeah, I think it said that. I think it says that pretty clearly.
Yeah. You don't barter with me. And you submit, and you wholly submit. And I remember hitting my knees again and fully submitting at that point. And I was, Lord, I know that I'm yours, and I know you have a plan for me. And whatever that plan is, as you reveal it, your will is mine. And at that point, I began to live through that. And then I got back in here I got back to Hendersonville, got back to my apartment. And that following Sunday, you know, I was like, okay, I'm going to church. I didn't know where. I had no clue. And I looked at several different churches and I was like, okay. When I went to bed that Saturday night, I didn't know where I was going to church. I just knew I was getting up early and going to church. And then I found myself here. And I remember walking in and you know, I sat in one of the wings, sat in the right wing of the balcony, and I was like, you know, I like it here. And I remember Pastor Bruce Raley saying, you know, we invite you to stay for Connect Group. And, you know, he said, you know, go out to the Welcome Center. And that's exactly what I did. I went out to the Welcome Center and I was like, well, you know, yeah, 945 right up here. And they took me up and introduced me to Brian Aaron. And I was like, okay. And then the next Sunday I came back and I you know, I remember that week so vividly. And I'll never forget the invitation call that week. And I can remember as Pastor Bruce began to pray, I was like, okay, say amen, because I'm coming down, you know? And so I did. And, you know, and I came down and I was like, hey, you know what? I want to move my membership here. You know, I've been inactive from First Baptist Dixon, you know, and I think they, you know, reached out to Mike and all of them over there at First Baptist Dixon. And I'd been inactive there for quite a while, but that was the last church that I was a member of. And as they say, the rest is history. I've been here since, you know. And
when was that? What year?
2022.
So you go from Iraq, coming home, going through a divorce with your first wife, getting remarried, having a horrible time, having a suicide attempt, going to the VA mental ward, getting out, being arrested. So it's like it's 15 plus years of a downward spiral.
Mm-hmm.
And then you end up here.
Yeah.
And now what's up?
So, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like,
And
that's a big, like talking about it. It's like, wait a minute. Okay. What year are we in? Because that's a lot.
Yeah, it is. It is. And so during that time, so prior to the suicide
when you
attempt,
moved, when you got out of, you kept getting arrested for all this stuff,
mm-hmm.
and you're like, I'm getting out of Dixon, I'm moving to Hendersonville,
mm-hmm.
and you're still married at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So you haven't even gone through that. You haven't had to go through that divorce yet.
Yeah, we're going through that divorce at that point in time.
You're not together.
Nope.
good thing. At that point, you've been arrested and everything else. And you're here living by yourself?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So fortunately, we didn't have any kids together. So that divorce was a pretty quick process.
Yeah.
I back up a little bit. I had gotten a dog because I had gotten a grant from Pups to Patriots for a service dog, PTSD service dog, right? For anxiety and anxiety interruption. And so I got him as a pup, right? I got him at 10 weeks old. I'm like, okay, I got this dog. We're going to bring him up. And then when he's old enough, I can get the grant to have him trained. And so as a pup, as much as you can, I started instilling at an early age a lot of obedience as much as you can as a pup. And then when he got to where you can really start that, I got that going with him. And then when I got that grant, that made it so much easier for his service animal training when they did that. And then she wasn't going to let me have him. I was like, well, you know what? This is the whole purpose I got him for. And but I was able to get him. So I have Graham. So it's Graham and I living here in Hendersonville.
Is this the dog you have now?
It is.
Okay.
It is. Yeah. Yeah.
So this isn't on video, but he has his dog here with him. Every now and then you might have heard him shake a little bit.
Oh, yep. Yep. So yeah, I have Graham, and Graham goes just about everywhere with me. But like I said, I started going to church here that was in the fall of 2022, because it was after September 11th, obviously.
Right.
Because September 11th was my suicide attempt. And then I began coming to church here. And, I love it. I got, involved in a connect group here. And I began going to psychotherapy classes through the VA. I completed 6 months of that.
How are those?
Difficult, hard work, but very rewarding.
I know a lot of people will kind of bash on the VA, but they also do a lot of good.
Yes.
I'm sure the bashing that they get is also deserved, but they also do a lot of good and help a lot of people in the same turn. Like
the VA is only as good as the administration at that local level. I can tell you right now, the Chattanooga VA is horrible. Based on what a lot of my buddies from Mike Battery have to deal with. A lot of those guys come all the way to Nashville or Murfreesboro now. Nashville and Murfreesboro is run by Tennessee Valley Healthcare for the VA. And I can say my dad was a 100% disabled vet. He was retired and 100% disabled vet from the Army. And so growing up through that VA system as a little boy, seeing it, I know the differences between then and now. It's so much better now. And I can honestly tell, and I actually told somebody the other day, I will not let anybody speak bad of the Nashville VA.
I think people need to hear that.
Yeah.
Just because most of the stuff you do see about the VA is not usually good.
You're going to have your one-off experiences. Go out here to any other private hospital.
Right.
Go down here to Vanderbilt. Go to any of your St. Thomas hospitals. Go to you name it, HCA hospital. And out of 100 people, you tell me all 100 of them are going to be completely satisfied
And that's
100% of the
everything in
time.
life. Even you throw, for a horrible reference, a restaurant.
Bingo.
You might have a bad experience one time at a restaurant.
Bingo.
But that doesn't mean it's bad all the time.
Yeah. And I can tell you, and one of the things that really helped when I was going through all of this, my primary care physician at VA, Dr. David McCoy, he retired last year. Love that man to death. They moved him out of the main VA campus to what they call a satellite community care clinic over at Meharry, at the Meharry Hospital, Nashville General. And they said, do you want to go over there with Dr. McCoy, or do you want a new primary care provider here? I was like, no, I'm going with Dr. McCoy. Let me tell you, that man would come in, and before, he would see me, he would go through my chart, and before he would walk out, it used to be, do you mind if I pray with you and for you? And then he got to know me. It was, let's pray. I love that man. Like I said, unfortunately, he retired. But he is one of the ones that really set me on the path to get the mental help that I needed through the VA. Because I came out of the psych unit and they were there to take care of the emergent need, but not the ongoing need.
Right.
And Dr. McCoy helped me with that, get that ongoing part set up. And so I tell people all the time, I literally owe my life, not owe my life, but the fact that I'm still on the face of this earth to the care that I receive at the VA. I still, every few weeks, I have mental health appointments. Because I still struggle at times. Now I went through the psychotherapy. I do not rely on Graham as much as I used to.
Not like Sundays. You don't have him here with you on Sunday.
No, I don't have him with me on Sundays. And I could. That's kind of our break away from each other too. You see, he's sitting here now. He's not a pet.
Right.
He knows how he's supposed to behave. And he goes to work with me because even though I don't rely on him, I feel like it would be wrong of me not to allow him to work because that's what he's been trained to do.
Right. Well, I've noticed as we've sat here and talked, there's been a couple times he's gotten up and.
Yep.
Is that him working?
Yep. That's him working.
I thought it was.
That's him working because he knows, and you can tell when I get amped up on something, he will come over, and that's his pressure. That's him working. So he knows.
So he
senses
working.
it. Yeah. But he knows when he can go lay back down.
You talked about the psychotherapy you went through and everything, and how it worked. It was hard work, but it worked. Mm-hmm. I think a big part of that is also because you wanted it to work.
Exactly.
Because I'm sure there's others that go through it and they're not committed.
Yeah, and that's one of
they might be committed on the onset, but then it starts getting hard.
Mm-hmm. And that was one of the things that my psychiatrist told me from the very beginning was, listen, you've got to put in the work. There's going to be some people, I've had patients that just go through the motions. And if you just go through the motions, it's not going to work for you. You have to want this. And it was very apparent that I was, to him especially, that I wasn't just going through the motions. And that it's something that I wanted. I wanted it for me. I wanted it for my kids. I wanted it for my grandkids. I wanted to enjoy life again.
Yeah.
And I did not I think it's like I've said before, I never want to get back to that point that I was at. And I was a big advocate, right? Of guys, hey, pick up the phone and call somebody. You know, if you ever get to that point, pick up the phone and call somebody, talk about it. I'm going to tell you, as somebody that got to that point, when you get to that point, you don't want to pick up the phone.
Yeah.
So it has to work in the exact opposite. We need to pick up the phone and call and check up on others instead of waiting on them to call when they have an issue. I've got two buddies that do it regularly. I got a buddy of mine, my best friend that I've worked with since 2011. He lives over here, and he and I don't work together anymore. He works at Dollar General now as in environmental compliance for the last year. And then, but he lives over in Goodlettsville, and he calls, texts, checks in on me regularly. As a matter of fact, while we were sitting here recording, he's tried calling me, talked to him yesterday. I was having a hard time yesterday afternoon. And he calls and checks in on me regularly. My buddy Mario from California, he calls and checks in on me regularly. And likewise, I do the same because it has to work in the reverse order. Because once a person gets to that point, you don't want to talk to anybody. You don't want to call somebody. And that's not something I realized until after I had gone through that.
What's your relationship like with your children now? Because I know you were recently in Florida seeing your daughter.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I have a great relationship with my kids. Like I said, Dylan is 28, and he lives in Dixon. He's the manufacturing manager for Dow Tile Quartz in Dixon. And I don't get to see him as often because of both of our work schedules as I would like. But I do get to see him pretty frequently, and I talk to him frequently. And then my daughter, Paige, she's 26. She lives in Florida. She lives in Navarre. I don't get to see her that often at all, obviously, with where she lives. But I talk to her very frequently. Talk to her. She's got 3 kids. And then, so here in a couple of weeks, I'm actually heading down again. And I'm bringing 2 of the kids back with me for a week.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. I'm going to bring 2 of them back with me for a week and let them have some fun with Granddaddy. But they'll spend a few days with me, and then they'll go spend some time with their other grandparents over in Dixon for a day or 2 before I take them back. But, yeah, I have a great relationship with my kids, and I actually have a really good relationship with my first wife now.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, she lives in Florida, and that's how my daughter and her family made their way down to Florida with her.
I find it funny. People will talk about, like, if they've been divorced and the kids are young when it happened, like, well, I just have to deal with them until they're 18. Well, no, that's not true, because your kids aren't going away. They're going to be having kids, and kids are going to have birthdays. And it's like, well, I want to be able to, like, have both my parents there. I don't want but my mom and my dad to be fighting with each other, and they can't both be at a kid's birthday party.
Right.
So I think that's where it's important. Like, if you do have a divorce, try to have at least have a good enough relationship where you can be in the same room with each other. So to help your kids, because it doesn't end when they turn 18.
Yeah, we went through that divorce, and that was pretty ugly and rough. And for a while, it was hard. We didn't have the greatest of relationships, but it's at a point. I see her every time I go to Florida, and I see her social media and things like that. I know, and it's one of those deals, every time I leave, from down there, I'm giving hugs all around, and she's one of them. And, it's, hey, I love you, and I know, and she's actually getting remarried here in a couple weeks as well. You know, and it's one of those things. And I was talking to my daughter, and we were talking, and I was like, you know, I said, me and your mom, you know, it's a lot different now, you know, because I'm always going to love her, you know, but it's a different type of love now.
Right.
And I'm so happy for her. But yeah, she and I have such a great relationship. You know, she texted me and called me on my birthday last week, you know, and it's one of those deals where we have that type of relationship now. And it's not just that. I've got that, you know, with her soon-to-be husband. Great guy, you know, very likable all the way around. So that blended family, when it comes to those events, it's not a big deal.
That's
you know?
so good.
Yeah. And that's where, you know, we've both have grounded ourselves in our faith. And that is what brings about a lot of it. You know, us being able to have that relationship and realize, you know what, this didn't work for us. God's plan was for it to, but we broke that plan. Just like man, you know, we're man, yep. And that's what happened. But there's no reason that we have to be ugly about it.
Man, I'm so glad you're where you're at now.
Oh yeah.
You know, you're an asset to all the groups you're in, to our men's group that you're in. You're such an asset to that, and the insight you're able to give when we're having our discussions and everything. I think you have a great ability to have an impact on others, just based on everything you've done, especially in the veteran community. And this talking to you, that seems like something that's very important to you, is the veteran community. Absolutely. I want to ask you that you have a fellow veteran comes to you, and that you know their background, that they're a good we'll say the saying of they're a good person, and they're talking to you, and they're like, you know what I've seen. You were over there also. You know the evil I've seen. With that kind of evil, how can you even think, like, I've lived my life well. I still do. I live a good life. I do the right thing. But with that kind of evil, how can there be a God? How can there be a Jesus with that kind of evil? How would you talk to that person? Because I think that's probably a pretty common thing people that have seen war can say is,
listen, so God is not a God of evil. He does not like evil. Man first broke the covenant. Evil and war is man-made. And you have to look at it from that point. Now then, I questioned myself at one point. How can God love me? How can I be forgiven for the blood I've spilled? Not from my body, but I've caused to be spilled from hundreds of others and taken their lives. There's no way that can be forgiven. But Jesus' blood covers all. That small 3-letter word, all. It don't mean some. It don't mean partial. It means all. And whatever you've done, whatever you think you've done, there's nothing so great that Jesus' blood cannot cover that before the Father.
Yeah, we go back to when you're in the jail cell and you're trying to barter. I think about there's nothing we can do to earn it.
No.
At all. Like you're sitting there trying to barter, and then that next morning you're real, you're kind of smacked upon the head. Hey, what are you trying to barter with me for?
Right.
There's nothing we can do to earn our way, or there's nothing we can do to earn salvation.
Absolutely not.
It is a gift from God that's only obtainable through Jesus, and admitting that He's the Son of God, that He died on the cross for our sins.
That's
and
it.
then He rose
on
from
the
dead
third day.
And we don't earn it. We don't deserve it.
We don't deserve it.
And we can't earn it.
Nope. And it's strictly His grace. And His grace and His mercy. And the definition of those two words alone, nowhere in those does it say, in order to get. No, it is a free gift, only obtainable through your admission and your submission.
And then it's a relationship.
That's it.
And all relationships, you have to work at them.
Absolutely.
And we talk about it in our class, our Connect group together about the way we're going to hear God speaking to us is through reading the Bible.
That's it.
And I sit there and say, I'm horrible at it. I go through good spurts and bad spurts of being in it and not in it. And I don't think that's an uncommon thing for men. It doesn't mean it's right. We need to be in that. We need to be reading God's word.
And that's like, and I'll say, when I look back at it, the times I hear God the most, quote unquote, hear God, is when I'm actively in His word.
Yeah.
That's where we hear
That's
Him.
the Holy Spirit talking to you.
Right? That's where we hear.
That word.
And when I'm not.
I think I said it Sunday, we could read a verse this month and it speaks to us in one way, and then read it again a month later and it's speaking to us in a totally different way.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where you get into it's the living word.
Exactly. And you tell me how something's been around as long
Right.
as His word. And it's, like you said, it's the living word, and it still speaks something different every day, and the thing about it is how it applies to my life, to your life, to somebody else's life. It may be different today for each individual one of us, according to the season we're in our life, and according to the season of our walk with Christ. It just varies. What are we experiencing? What are we going through? Where are we at in God's plan for our life? Because He has a plan for each one of us, and that plan is different for you than it is for me. So what His word has to say to you may be applicable in a different way than it is for me.
I think you can probably speak to this as based on what you said about, you said yesterday wasn't a good day.
No.
And, accepting Christ and living life as a Christian doesn't mean things are easy. We're still going to have our bad days. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean you accept Christ and you don't need to go through the therapy that you went through.
Right.
You still have to do the work. You still have, the issues that can haunt you and that you need help from. But having Christ in your life, it doesn't hurt. All it does is help, because you have that unconditional love. And I don't know how since you've been back and having a closer relationship with Jesus in these past few years, how that has affected everything else, and what you can maybe say about that, or even how yesterday you said wasn't a good day. How is where you're at right now in your walk with Christ, how does it affect that?
Well, and some people will say, well, God says he'll never give us more than we can handle.
He always gives us more
Show
than
me
we
where
can
it says
handle.
that. Show it says, because he always does. Because what he wants us to do is he wants us to
be
give it to him.
And,
Right?
yeah.
And so a lot of things we as man, we want to control it. We want to call the shots. We want to barter. Well, that's not how this works. I'll say that with me, I still go through these ups and downs, just like everybody else goes through their own ups and downs with whatever it is they have in their life. But it's how we deal with them that really makes an impact. And with me, I utilize what I've learned in my therapy, right? And I go to the great healer, okay? There's nothing that our God can't heal. There's nothing that he can't heal. There's some things that may not be in his plan. I wholeheartedly agree with that, right? There may be some things that we want him to do that aren't in his plan, or, hey, I want you to do it this way, God. We don't barter. We don't barter. He's going to do it his way in his timing. And the sooner you realize that, hand it over to the Lord, let the Lord handle it, let the Lord fight your battles, and just submit. Life is going to be much better. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy. I've had hard times, still do. And I know I will again in the future. But I know who I have that's going to help me through that. Because it's not myself.
Right.
So that's kind of how I look at that. And I'll tell you, I tell people now, here I am, I'm living my best life. I say that a lot now, here I am, I'm living my best life. I've relocated, from being a big fish in a small pond, in Dixon County, where I was well known in the business community. I was married to a physician in a small town, a specialized physician, that everybody knows. And now here I am in a big town that nobody knows me, and I love it.
Well, we know you.
Yeah, so. Yeah, right. but yeah, and I love it. Not everybody's in my business. And I came here and people are like, why such a big church? I'm like,
it doesn't feel that big.
That big.
And that's why I try to tell people, yes, it's a big church. But like in our group that you're in, the men's group on Sunday mornings, there's 7 or 8 guys that are routinely there. It's also at 7:30 in the morning. If it was a little later, there might be a few more.
Right.
But man, you get involved in a group like that, and it doesn't feel like you're at I guess we say a mega church.
Right.
And even when you're going to service, it doesn't have that feel to it.
No, it doesn't.
The Bruces are after each service, they're out there talking to everybody. Mm-hmm. It's not like, they're going back to their office and you're not talking to them between services. No, you're going to see them. And if you want to talk to them, you're going to talk to them.
Right.
And I think that's something that's different for a church of this size that you don't always see, that it is welcoming. You can find your place here. Mm-hmm. It's not that hard. It's like what we talked about earlier, going to the therapy. You have to want it. Mm-hmm. You have to. It's not going to always it is the church, so we do outreach, but you have to walk in that door.
Right.
And you're going to find a place here. You're going to find somebody that you can connect with.
Well, in 23, it was May of 23, I bought my house right across the river in LaGuardo area. And I continued to drive across the river and come to church, which is not that far, 25 minutes, 30 minutes. And to some people that live right here in Hendersonville or in Gallatin, like, what? I'm like, man, when I lived in Dixon County, I lived on the Dixon-Humphreys County line, and it was 25 minutes just to get into Dixon. But you know, and then I went to another church over in Mount Juliet for a little bit, which wasn't much closer, but it was a little bit. But this felt like home.
Yeah.
And after a few weeks, I'm like, no, I'm going back to Hendersonville. First Baptist Hendersonville is my home. And it's very rare that, you know, that I'm not here. And if it is, it's usually because I'm out of town.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, you know, it does. It feels like home. It doesn't feel like a quote unquote mega church. It's like you said, the Bruces, they're out there. You know, they're very welcoming. Everybody's very welcoming. And the biggest thing
is
genuine.
Yeah. You can tell it's genuine.
Yeah.
Like you can tell when something's real and when it's not real.
Oh, yeah.
It's real.
Yeah.
Like, you know, they know so many people's names and it blows my mind.
Right.
Because I'm horrible at that. Like, how do y'all do this?
Oh, I'm the same way. I'm like, oh, me. Hey, you. I'm sorry. You're gonna have to remind me. But yeah. And then, you know, everybody that you meet, you know, is, hey, good morning. How you doing? You know, and it is genuine. And the more you get involved with different ministries, the more you get to know different people, and it starts to shrink that much more. You know, Casey reached out. Casey Camersell reached out to me and said something about, you know, needing some help with the golf cart ministry. I was like, well, sure, you know.
Who doesn't want to drive a golf cart?
Right. The only thing, man, those things only have a top speed, and, you know, I mean, but I tell you what, the tips, man, rake them in. And, but yeah, so, you know, bringing people in on golf carts, you get to know so many people.
Yeah.
Some regulars that are regular riders on the golf carts, and some that, you know, they're one-offs here and there. Kids want to get on, and they want to get on the very back end of it, like we talked about earlier, you know. So you get to meet parents that way. But yeah, you get to meet so many people. And then again, you know, the men's ministry, this podcast alone, you know, it reaches out. There's no telling how many people, you know, will listen to this podcast and decide, hey, you know, Jeff was talking about this men's group that meets on Sunday at 7:30.
Yeah.
That's how I found the men's group.
They might want to come meet you. Yeah.
I think
much more interesting.
Probably you, because you're the one that they hear every week. But yeah, so, you know, that's how I found out about that men's group meeting at 7:30 every week. Was I started listening to this podcast when it first came out. I was like, what do you mean there's a men's group at 7:30? You know what? I'm an early riser. So I started coming to the 7:30 men's group, you know, so I'll do that. Then I'll go to the 8:30 service, then a 9:45 connect group, you know, so I didn't quit going to that, you know,
right.
So.
Yeah, I do two connect groups because
yeah.
I do the men's one, and then my wife and I do one together.
Right, because your wife
right next door.
Yeah, you are in the one right next door to the one I go to with Brian and Michelle Aaron.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much. And one of the, I feel like this outreach that you can have, this by being able, a lot of people wouldn't be willing to talk about everything you've talked about today.
No. And I probably wouldn't have been a couple years ago even. I definitely wouldn't have been, you know, 7-8 years ago or more.
I think it's so important that I don't think it's something you have to go do all the time, but this is recorded and it's something we can go back to if we know somebody. Go, hey, go listen to this.
Right.
And I think this is a good way for you to be able to talk about it. And once we release this, it's going to be out there for people where somebody might just need to listen and hear something from somebody else. And it doesn't have to be somebody that's in the military. There's a lot of guys that weren't in the military that suffer through those same thoughts, that have a suicide attempt and everything. And something that really struck me about what you said is how it says, hey, if you need somebody, you just need to call. And what you said about when you get to that point, you don't call. Mm-hmm. And I've listened to enough other people that have been doing the same thing. They have their gun, they have it in their truck with them, and they're ready to go do it. And all of a sudden that phone rings.
Yep.
And that's what stops it.
That's the interruption.
And and they say the person that calls them goes, I don't know why, but I just felt like I needed to call you right now. So if you are that person, you have that feeling of, man, I need to call somebody. I haven't talked to them in 2 years, but I need to give them a call. Make that call.
Don't ignore it. Don't postpone it.
It might be nothing, but it could be something huge that you don't even know about. Mm-hmm. And you might not never know about it.
Yeah.
But make that call if something is telling you to make that phone call to that person.
Absolutely. And, I said as part of my story, and I made it, I had a little cliche saying, because my attempt was on September 11th, 2022. And I started going through my therapy, my counseling. I didn't start my therapy. My therapy was in 2023, but I made it my cliche that 2023 is going to be the year of me. And that was the motto that I lived by that year. And everything I did in 2023 was about me. And I said, at this point, I want what my story is. If I can help one person by sharing my story, I've served a purpose. If I can keep one person from either A, going down that road, or B, getting to that point, or even worse, following through on those actions, then it was all worth me sharing my story. I have no qualms about it. I've gotten to where I don't mind sharing my story with people just because of that reason. And I never know who's going to hear my story, what their thoughts are
right now.
Oh, exactly. Right. But if one person hears it and it impacts their life, what a change.
Yeah.
What a change.
Yeah. I asked you before we started, and you said you might have a few. Do you have a favorite passage from the Bible?
Yeah.
Or has it changed 15 times since we've been talking?
No.
Sometimes it's hard to find that favorite one. It's like, man, right now what's really speaking to me is one because of this topic we've been talking about or something.
So I go back to this, okay? Revelation 6:8. All right. And part of this is where it comes in, right? It references the fourth seal. And this comes back to my time in artillery, of our call sign. Our call sign was pale horse. So that's so that's where we get that, and the pale horse representing death and unrelenting mortality in that from artillery. But I would go back and passage. I really love the book of Matthew. I always have. And if I really had to narrow it down, I would say probably, what is it, Matthew 18. I can't remember what verse it is, but it deals with forgiveness. And it's the parable of forgiving the debtor, and then that, the master forgiving the debtor, and then that debtor not forgiving his own servant, right?
Yeah. I don't know if you were in class when we did that. We did that one in class not too long ago.
Yeah, actually, you know what? We did. But that speaks a lot to me, and I'll tell you, that was one thing that I actually expressed that to my ex-wife a while back, because it took me a little bit to get there, but it's like I told her, that was what helped me get to the point of where I'm at today, is we don't necessarily forgive others for them. We have to forgive for ourselves, because that's what we've been commanded to do.
Yeah. That's really hard to do sometimes.
Yeah. And I've had somebody,
that are important are hard to do.
Yeah. And I've had somebody ask me, well, where's that commandment? Well, there's the two greatest, right? And it's to love thy God with all your heart, and then to love your neighbor as yourself, and if you do so, the only way you can do that is by forgiving. If you can't forgive, then you can't love. Those two have to go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And by doing so, I have found freedom in life, right? So I would say that parable in Matthew is what really speaks to me, because I was one that, I used to hold a lot of grudges. I could not forgive. But I've gotten to the point where, you know what? I can forgive. I don't necessarily always have to forget, because one, if we forget, guess what? We're doomed to repeat some things.
Yeah.
But I can forgive, and truly forgive and move on. And I'm doing that because that's what God's word says for us to do. That's his instruction to us, is to forgive and to love. So who am I to argue with that? So that's kind of one of my favorite passages there.
I'm gonna have to read Revelation 6:8.
6:8.
Because when you said it's because of artillery, I'm like, oh yeah, I see it now.
Oh yeah.
And so it says, and I looked, and there was a pale green horse. The horseman on it was named Death, and Hades was following after him. Authority was given to them over a fourth of the earth to kill by the sword, by famine, by plague, and by the wild animals of the earth. And I'm like, okay, well, I see why an artillery guy would pick that verse. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I did tell you, hey, I might ask you about your favorite book, but you mentioned it was Call Sign Chaos.
Yeah, Call Sign Chaos.
And that's by General Mattis.
Yeah.
Why is that your favorite book?
I really subscribe to a lot. One, I got to know General Mattis on a personal level in Iraq. And this was when he was a 2-star general. So I got to know him on a personal level in Iraq. I was in a lot of the meetings with the negotiations with the Fallujah locals and General Mattis and team. But his leadership lessons revealed through that book are on point. And it tells a lot about General Mattis from his early days. And I'm trying to remember. I don't remember if it reveals in there about call sign chaos or not. And a lot of people think General Mattis, Mad Dog. Quite honestly, he did not like that term. That was a term that President Trump gave him. His call sign was chaos. And believe it or not, that he got that from Colonel Tulin. Colonel Tulin was the RCT-1 commander in Iraq, but he got that call sign long before when General Mattis was a colonel. He was the regimental commander of First Marine Regiment. And then Lieutenant Colonel, he was a junior Lieutenant Colonel, Tulin was the future OPSO for First Marine Regiment. And every day there's a briefing, ops briefing, future ops briefing. And if you know anything about General Mattis, very forward thinking, very well educated, and very well read. There's probably no better expert on the Middle East than that man. But anyway, so the OPSO, Lieutenant Colonel Tulin would, he would have his ops plan out there. And of course, here comes Colonel Mattis at the time and rearranges everything. He's got another plan or another suggestion. Might I suggest? And that was always one of his things is, might I suggest this? So it became a running joke around the COC. Lieutenant Colonel Tulin at the time wrote chaos vertically on the board one morning. And at the time, Colonel Mattis took the bait and asked what it was. And Colonel Tulin told him, he goes, does the colonel have another outstanding suggestion? And it stuck.
That's great. That's great.
So that's where
better than Mad Dog.
Yeah.
But
So that's where that call sign chaos came from, and that was actually his call sign was chaos.
So was he a guy you would say that not only talk the talk but walk the walk?
Oh yeah,
You were able to see that from what you were at serving under him.
Absolutely. He was not just approachable, but he went out of his way to approach Marines. I'll still never forget one of my junior Marines, a Lance Corporal that's been in the Marine Corps for maybe a year and a half, asking him one day why he had never been married. And, General Mattis and his colorful responses were, it was, he looked at him square in the eye and put his hand on his shoulder and he told him, he said, well, Placencia, he said, I'm a Marine's Marine. He said, I like drinking beer and chasing women too much. And that was General Mattis.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, the man was very, very well educated and very well versed in his subject. And you did not brief General Mattis without having your act together. You better know. And just knowing that he was going to have a suggestion for you.
Yeah.
Might I suggest?
If you have a PowerPoint, make your last slide.
Yeah.
Might I suggest? No.
Yeah. Might I suggest? But I'll always take that away from my time with General Mattis in Iraq was might I suggest?
That's good. Before we get ready to close out, is there anything else that you'd like to share?
I tell you what, I will put this out there, because we all struggle from time to time, and I know there's many people that listen to this, not just men, although it is geared towards.
We do have female listeners. Well, eventually, we're going to have a female guest. I'm just
there. We go.
Who's going to be that first one?
Yeah, but I put this out there for anybody, right? I've shared my story. We all have a story. And I say this, and it's kind of cliche, that I said, when you get to that point, you don't ever want to pick up the phone and call. But if you ever, before you get to that point, pick up the phone and dial 811. Okay. You can dial 811. And there's going to be a counselor on the other end of that line to talk to you. But I want to encourage individuals to utilize that resource before you get to that point. I also want to encourage everybody out there, listen, if you know somebody that struggles, check in on them from time to time. Pick up the phone and call them. Hey, how you doing? Buddy check. That's a big thing. We do that. There's several guys. We've got, different group texts, different, a Facebook Messenger group from different units that I've been in, right? Because I've been in several different units with 12 years in the Marine Corps, 5 different units. So every week there's something going on, buddy check, everybody needs to roger up, or phone calls. So I encourage everybody, hey, check on each other. We've all got to get through this thing called life on earth together, and make it to the promised land.
That's great. Almost there. I'm going to pray us out, and
absolutely
we'll be done. God, thank you for letting Dave be here with us and share everything that he's gone through his life, what's got him to the point he's at right now. I feel like this has been a great conversation we've been able to have, and I hope that his story can reach others that might be going through some difficulties also, and this have a lasting effect on them, or it encourages those to reach out to those people that they might be worried about, or just get that inclination, I need to reach out to that person, and that they will follow through with it after hearing this. Let Dave and I, be able to use this podcast that we've been able to do together to reach people and to have an impact on them, help them find their way, to follow Christ. Let him and I both be able to live our lives in a way that honors you. And again, I'm glad we were able to spend this time together. I think we set the record for longest podcast that we've had so far. So in your name I pray, amen.
Amen.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Path, a podcast production of the men's ministry of First Baptist Church in Hendersonville, Tennessee. For more information, or if you have questions, please visit our website at FBCHville.com. That's FBCHville.com.